Morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Good morning. It's Friday, October 11th. It is a crisp morning here in Georgia. I swear I have missed you guys. Seems like I've been gone forever. Let me see where my trusty co-host is. Let's see where Mr. David is. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Tamara. How are
How
you?
are you? Good, good. It's Friday. I
Well,
missed you.
yeah. It's been a while.
I
Uh,
know. Seems like I've been gone. We've been gone for a long time. Like the world has kept spinning and we're now catching up with it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of blowing up around us. So um, there
Oh,
are exciting uh, happenings in the on the political front with um, this arrest of these two Giuliani henchmen. Uh,
wait. So there's something going on around the impeachment with an
yeah,
arrest?
Yeah. These two
Oh
guys were
no.
leaving the country um, and held on $1 million bail, and they have been accused by the Southern District of New York, the Justice Department, Southern District of New York, of uh, uh, armed uh, using foreign money to influence, to aid, to finance Trump's reelection campaign.
Oh
So
my. Oh my. This thing is getting closer and closer and bigger, David.
yeah, and it's really interesting because this is the guy that Trump replaced Preet Bharara with. Preet Bharara was the Southern District of New York chief prosecutor, and this guy who is the head, Berman, was Trump's appointee, and he's bringing the charges. And the other thing that's so ironic about it is that this is where Giuliani made his name. He was the chief, prosecutor for the Southern District of New York. So he could be very easily brought up on criminal charges by the SDNY, that he used to head before he was mayor of New York.
Mm,
Yeah, it's
he
coming
this thing
around.
is
But
coming around and getting closer and closer, and they knew it was corruption. Like we've all known that there was corruption all around him, and now it is starting to cave in on him.
yeah, yeah, and it's not like I mean it's not like there that Biden may not be innocent in all of this either. Uh, the
Not our Joe Biden.
oh yeah, our Joe Biden. I mean, this the corruption in the Ukraine was enormous, and I think it probably uh, affected all the Obama administration as well as the Trump administration. Um, but Biden's an old time Paul. I mean, he's part of the system. Um,
Mhm.
so anyway, that be that as it may, uh, interesting times we live in. Uh,
Yeah.
that's that's what's going on, and yeah, this is um, maybe the deep state, pushing back against Trump.
This time. Good morning. Good morning, Ken. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hey,
Good
thank you for
morning.
having me.
Yeah, good morning. We missed you. We haven't seen you in a while, and there's a lot of stuff happening on the front of police reform and criminal justice. Go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience who may not know who you are.
Certainly, coming from the road is Ken Williams, kwillservices.com. I'm a use of force police practices expert, certified by the federal court and state courts, where I am hired and retained by attorneys to assess police practices. Some of the cases, unfortunately, involve the wrongful death of citizens, from police officers escalating in the use of deadly force. And, I render an unbiased decision with respect to the practices.
We've been watching that trial in Dallas, Ken, with the officer Amber Geyer. Am I saying her name
Yes,
correct? And then Botham John.
yes,
Yeah, we
yeah. I mean,
all
it's
watched that.
that particular case is is a tragic situation of an officer entering someone else's apartment. We can say it, breaking and entering into someone else's apartment. The officer didn't have legal justification for being there, whether it be, negligence on her part or not. It's still a breaking and entering. And then while inside that person's apartment, shooting and killing an unarmed citizen that was inside his own apartment um, is truly egregious. And the trial, the verdict of the trial, the jurors came back and decided that it was murder, and in fact that the officer, Miss Geiger, should be punished with 10 years to serve for those actions.
So the witness that was killed, everybody is in an uproar because that witness, Justin Brown, am I saying this?
Yes.
Was shot in the mouth and in the chest, and now the Dallas police said it's a drug deal gone bad.
Right. I mean, I think in any instance where the police have firsthand knowledge as far as the evidence that they're collecting, a lot of times, I understand the community may want to second guess because unfortunately there are so many cases out here where police exonerate other police officers in actions. But in this particular case, the key witness, the prosecution witness, Mr. Brown, it appears that the police are saying that this was a drug deal gone awry. That some other citizens from the state of Louisiana traveled by car, met up with Mr. Brown, and during the course of their interaction, that there was they're saying that one of the people who confessed to the police or gave a statement to police, not so much a confession, but gave a statement to police, that Mr. Brown produced a gun that set off a series of shots being fired, first by Mr. Brown and then the other people firing back at Mr. Brown, striking him and killing him. And the thing about the statement that everyone should pay more attention to is that it's a defendant making a statement about their criminal acts. And because we have seen the ground laws these days that the statement by the defendants may not be accurate in terms of what actually occurred. Mr. Brown may have been out there with a gun or without a gun. Mr. Brown may have fired a gun, may not have fired a gun. And that's the reason why we need to take a step back and allow maybe the science to examine whether or not Mr. Brown has gunshot residue on his hands or has, blowback gunshot residue on clothing. What's the proximity of him to other people who were shot at that particular crime scene? There's a lot of information, a lot of facts and circumstances that can come out from physical evidence that we don't have to worry about maybe trying to guess about. And the probability of what occurred versus what didn't occur.
So start right there. So this is the Dallas police doing their own internal investigation of what happened. Why did they not get another outside source? Let's start.
Well, it's not so much an internal investigation because it's a homicide. You have Mr. Brown, a citizen that was shot and killed on a street, a public street, and it's a homicide. As a retired homicide detective, I would expect that if I worked for the Dallas Police Department, I would get a call, a 911 call that said, "Hey, police respond to this location as a shooting," and the police, that's what their duties are. They respond to crimes. They would respond, and even though it may be Mr. Brown that shot and in need of 911 services, they would investigate that. It wouldn't be turned over to someone else, even if he was a material witness in a prosecution case that ended up with a former police officer being charged and sent to jail.
Why? Okay, so the family is requesting that an outside investigation happens outside of the Dallas Police Department.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that they can request an outside investigation, or they can actually, find out if someone's willing to work pro bono to provide an outside investigation type of service for them. But at the end of the day, the police officers rely on science, and the medical examiner's office in Dallas, they're going to bring evidence that they collected from that scene. They're going to also probably have an autopsy report that's conducted by a doctor that examines Mr. Brown's remains, and will collect the evidence from Mr. Brown's remains. And at the end of the day, even if you hire your own medical expert, they're relying basically on the reports from the medical examiner's office.
You know, we don't trust this, right?
I understand trust is earned.
We don't trust the Dallas Police Department, and rightfully so.
Well,
we may not trust the Dallas Police Department, but we should rest assured that the prosecution, the prosecutor's office, worked tirelessly with its own investigators to even counter what the narrative was that was produced by the Dallas Police Department. So I think if we think about it in that sense, it's a homicide, and there are other eyes that are independent from the Dallas Police Department that are working on it. If the Dallas prosecutor's office was in cahoots with the Dallas Police Department, Ms. Geiger would be out and probably still employed by the Dallas Police Department today.
Why did the black lawyer not pay for him a witness protection, apartment, money, and food? Why did that not happen?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Ms. Geiger is the defendant. There's no, from what I understand, there aren't any reports of Mr. Brown being threatened by the Dallas Police Department officers that remained employed. This is an incident that occurred after the trial. He may have had concerns of his safety and stuff like that, but he was involved in a prior incident a year ago that involved him being a victim of a gunshot wound at a nightclub. That had nothing to do with the police officers. It was just, some other crime that occurred. So, this sounds like to me that it's not material to what occurred based on what the police department's reporting. It's not material to what occurred at the trial. He testified, and this is something completely unrelated to that.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would say, Ken, is that we know that medical examiners' offices are at best, uneven in their, in the level of expertise that exists, and also they are not independent of the prosecutorial and law enforcement wing almost anywhere in the country. So, it would be, it seems to me that along with the whole way in which prosecutorial discretion is used, which is a much broader issue than this particular case, or even the cases of wrongful death by police officers, there is this question about, can we find a way to make the medical examiners truly independent of the law enforcement and prosecutors system, right? I mean, that would be an important reform that would make the medical examiners maybe directly responsible to an independent branch of government. And then there was a recently I can't remember the author's name now, but I think it's Pfaff, P-F-A-F-F, who wrote this book on prosecutors and what prosecutors' role has been in mass incarceration over the last 30 plus years. And how prosecutors are virtually, are very, very influenced by the politics of lock them up and throw away the key, for a very long time. And now we have a few prosecutors around the country that have been elected that are reform prosecutors who are talking about, that their role is not to, to prosecute at the highest levels, but to find ways to de-escalate, the criminal uh, um, charges that are against particularly poor Black communities.
Now let him answer, David, because that's a loaded statement, question everything. Go
Sure. I
ahead,
mean,
Ken.
it's a very valid point, and I think we have to treat it case by case.
Yeah.
And in the case of Miss Geiger, who shot and killed this innocent Black man who was inside his own apartment, just trying to eat ice cream and watch TV one evening, we have this case where the medical examiner's office, the prosecutor's office, the prosecutor's investigators that are separate and apart from the Dallas Police Department, all came to a conclusion that law enforcement, the investigations conducted by law enforcement, were contrary to the facts, and that they prosecuted Ms. Geiger based on the facts and circumstances that she committed a crime of negligence. You know what I mean? Homicide. I've done some work with the Dallas prosecutor's office, so I know some of them directly, and based on my experience having been in Dallas to conduct some of that work as an independent consultant, I can tell you I was very, very impressed with how independent the Dallas prosecutor's office is from the Dallas Police Department. The cases that I was retained on involved police officers that wrongfully shot and killed citizens. And the Dallas prosecutor's office, I can tell you, based on my own opinion and based on my own firsthand knowledge, worked tirelessly to get to the truth. And we're very unbiased. And the medical examiner's office, the science behind all of that was very independent from the Dallas Police Department as well and other police agencies. So, we may have problems in many different jurisdictions, and we also have a problem with the fact that majority of cases of police officers being charged, most get off. So in Dallas, we've had Ms. Geiger that's gone to jail recently. We've had two other police officers in the past year and a half that were charged in Dallas County that were also prosecuted and are serving time in jail. So whatever Dallas is doing recently is definitely working to try to go and make sure they minimize the negative impact of having a bias between them and the police officers that they're charging. Now, if we want to talk about Judge Kemp, as far as I'm concerned, because of some of her rulings that she had in the Geiger trial, where in one instance she ruled that Ms. Geiger should have a self-defense for being in the victim's apartment because she feared for her life, which was absurd because the victim in that case was in his own apartment and feared for his life. Had a self-defense. So, I mean, I believe that the judge in that particular case, Ms. Geiger's case, had a serious bias. But, the prosecutor's office did its job. Yeah.
And the judge being a Black woman, right? I mean, the judge in the case was a Black woman, right?
Not only Black woman, but,
yes, she was.
You have a judge you have a bailiff that's in the room that's, touching a murderer, a convicted murderer's hair to go and put it back in its proper condition. You have the judge giving a convicted murderer a hug and a Bible. Yeah. These people aren't connected to the victim's family. They're professionals. And in all my years, 20 plus years in law enforcement, I've never seen such a thing.
Yeah.
So what about, she said that the reason the bailiff was touching her hair was because she was searching her because they didn't have time to search her prior. So she was searching her hair. That's what she said.
Think about the logic of that. It's an absurd assertion because if you're going to search someone, right? If you're going to search someone, you're going to have them stand up first of all. You're going to handcuff them second, and then you're going to do your pat frisk. And if you're in the court and you have a defendant that walked into the court, they were searched before they get there. Most courthouses have whether you walk in freely without being in custody, or whether you come in and you're in police custody, you're searched. So this idea that someone is touching someone's hair as if they have a weapon between the locks of their hair is a ridiculous statement.
Yeah, well, okay. So what you're saying is that something's going right in the Dallas prosecutor's office, and
the world is suspicious.
And there's still large sections of the system that have even within Dallas have some issues that need to be worked through. And
I think the most important part is to treat it on a case by case basis, because next week Dallas may have a case that they flub on, and we're going to be having a different conversation about that particular case. But if we're talking about the Geiger case, prosecutor's office did its job. Dallas Police Department dropped the ball, clearly dropped the ball, and also the Texas Rangers dropped the ball as well.
Well, thank you, Ken, for always. We're going to let him go. We're going to bring Robby in just a few minutes. But thank you, Ken, for every second Friday giving us a update around police reform in this country and these trials and criminal justice and keeping us in the loop. So tell everybody how to find you, and again, tell them who you are.
Again, thank you for having me. My name is Ken Williams. I run a consultancy business, kwillservices.com. And it's a use of force, police practices, wrongful death. I'm retained by attorneys, so I do handle some private calls, but for the most part, I'm retained by attorneys regarding these type of very difficult cases regarding police practices.
Thank you, Ken. Next month, we'll see you then.
All right, thank you.
Take care, Ken.
David, it's getting hot around here. This country, some days, this whole impeachment with Trump. We just came back. I was gone last week. We did not have a broadcast. I was at the ADOS conference in Louisville, Kentucky, and I can tell you that there's a group of us activists from around the country were there. We were literally on fire, and we're not playing about this call for reparations, David. We're looking for this country to make amends with Black people, those of us that are clear about our lineage, those of us that are direct descendants of slavery. America has a lot of work to do. By 2053, we are projected to be a bottom caste, where we will be have a zero net wealth, David. And this is not an ask. We are literally demanding that America make amends, and we want reparations.
Yes, and I think that's going to be an increasingly important topic. There was just a whole discussion about a direct relationship between Mobile in Mobile, Alabama, where they found this the last slave ship, transatlantic slave ship, buried in the mud in Mobile Bay, and the descendants of the owner of that ship in Mobile are still living there, alongside of the whole community of African Americans that were on that slave ship. So there's a direct one-to-one relationship between this millionaire family, the mayors, and this community that was established from the captives that were on that ship, who are still there in living in effect in the same city, and one group being having their community under stress all of the time, and the other group, the family of this guy, still in a position of tremendous wealth and power. So it's really stark, and those kind of situations are going to come out more and more. And the question then becomes, how do you how do you evaluate all of these, claims? How do we break them down? I mean, this is a really stark one-to-one relationship that exists in one community. But for the rest of the country, I mean, one of the things that's come out, and I've talked about this a few times, is that within the last two generations, in other words, a century and a half after slavery, 1 million black farmers have lost their land. And we know that that's a direct result of white supremacist use of farm loans. And it at the same time, large numbers of poor white farmers have lost their land, or small farmers have lost their land. So there's a real issue of solidarity there. Can we restore small farms, which are going to be essential if we're going to have an environmentally sound farming system in the United States? So there's a lot going on that I think is really
Yeah.
around
Right here in Georgia, that during that storm that was it Hurricane Michael? There was a storm that happened in Georgia that affected farmers, and how slow the federal government was in responding to the request of farmers and the aid that they needed. So, and black farmers are still struggling. I heard that there's a suicide rate among farmers, and I didn't even know, like, that was even, people are that's depressed over what's happened. Yeah. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this country, David, and this demand. Like I said, we're not asking. This whole ADOS movement, for those that don't know, American Descendants of Slavery, those of us that are real clear about our lineage and our direct connection to slavery. I am first generation college graduate. I didn't get my undergrad degree until I was 29, and I'm working on my master's now, but I'm just telling you how I know that I am a direct descendant of slavery. And my aunt, who's in her 60s, would tell me stories about growing up in the quarters, David. And I always thought the quarters was just, like I say, this little area, but the quarters was the slave quarters. Like, she remembers this, and she's in her 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to your story about the slave ship that's been discovered, people, we know the government, if we know who we are, they know who we are.
Well, the other thing is that Trump's tariffs, the $15 billion or whatever he set aside to offset the tariffs, effect on farmers, because the soybean crop is no longer being bought up by China. Much of that is going to these big corporate farms, so that they really are concentrating the wealth, once again in the hands of corporations. So there's a lot of that.
And Cheryl just said it. We are owned, all of us.
Yeah.
And this is where, David, we're having, and those of you that don't know, we just put it out, but November the 9th, for those of you that are local here to Georgia, we're going to do a book talk on Martin Luther King's last manuscript. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Because we have, and David and I are an example of solidarity. And we've been working on this for years. Chime in, David. My phone is ringing.
The phone rang and I didn't hear what you were saying about.
I said chime in.
Chime in for what? I didn't hear what you said before that. Oh, there
Having some technical difficulties, yeah. David. I was saying chime in on our event.
On November 9th, where do we go from here?
Yes.
I would be very interested in talking over where we are since the Montgomery bus boycott. of starting December 1st, 1955, which it seems to me is the launching of the movement. And Martin Luther King's book is a really good place to start with that, because it does recount what happened with the Montgomery bus boycott. And I think there's some really useful perspective to have on what happened in the mid 50s. So I don't know how much you want me to go into that, but
Well, yeah,
I think
he talks. Yeah, he talks about the need for us to be in solidarity. He goes into this, all the history around where we were, and I'm still reading it. I've been listening to it on audio. And I actually ordered the hard copy so I can follow through and highlight. But it is going to be a phenomenal read. It was a suggested read for us at the ADOS conference. Just I just want to read to you what someone just put on the screen. Mr. Kevin McGahey, and I might be saying his name wrong, so forgive me, Kelvin. He says, I have great respect of David because I see him putting in the work and evolving his ideas. So people want to, appreciate you, David.
Well, that's thank you. That's what I'm been doing for a long time. Oh, look who's here.
Look who's here, Robby.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. So where are you, Robby? Robby Caban, y'all hadn't seen Miss Robby. She's a realtor. She's been busy all summer long, but she is on location. Talk a little louder, Robby, so we can hear you.
Well, let me turn this around, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble for this one because I'm riding.
That's okay. We stay. Good trouble, Robby. Good trouble.
Good trouble. Okay. So basically, you are in the heart of Southwest Atlanta, and this is a neighborhood called Capitol View, and this is actually where I live, and I've lived here for over 10 years. And recently, we had a big event. Tyler Perry Studios is down the street, which is where we're headed. And that is 300 acres that City of Atlanta sold to Mr. Perry that is currently operational with 17 sound studios. And this part is probably pertinent. See how this is all desolate and empty? There's a big gap. This area was kind of left behind after the housing bubble. Of course, there have been 3 housing bubbles. And it was predominantly African American prior to the white flight, or after the white flight, I should say. And we're heading down Campbellton Road because I saw the celebration with Tyler Perry, and this is not at all to knock. You can see the renovations going on. And, again, for sales, there's a difference between being on sale and for sale, And this is actually a new senior development, and we're going under Murphy, which is where the Beltline is. And the Beltline has had a huge impact on these communities. And this is Oakland City MARTA Station, which hopefully is set for transit-oriented. But in short, that project was put on hold because the only people that wanted to put in for the RFP were nonprofits, and the neighborhoods who were controlled by, more affluent people rejected it. So in a sense, this is a good example of us needing inventory, us having a housing shortage, us having a homeless shortage, and then it's rejected because of the way the systemic structure in Atlanta for the NPU, which is the Neighborhood Planning Unit, which was created under Maynard Jackson. But this example with Tyler Perry that we're going to go see because it's so much easier to see visually. So basically on the road to Tyler Perry, which is about a mile down, you're going to see every house is boarded up. And that's because these communities have been showcased when people were not protected and they weren't warned. And that has happened because we have a disconnect in the public engagement, the civic engagement. And really, I believe, and I want to chat with y'all about this, when I get stationary, maybe we can. I think that there's more than 2 classes in Atlanta. They say a tale of 2 cities. Well, this example clearly shows that there's affluent black and white, and then there's poor black. And it might even be PO, like just PO, like don't even have the OR. And you'll see it when we get down there, because I was, like everyone, impressed with what Tyler Perry did, and, his sound studios and his tributes to, wonderful people who have made a tremendous difference, like Oprah Winfrey. He got tweeted by Michelle Obama. And then when you look at what's happening right outside his wall, it's shocking. So this is the community of Oakland City. And this is you're going to see boarded up. You're going to see boarded up and then flipped. And this whole street, literally boarded up. We buy cash houses. Boarded up. Hopefully you can see these boarded up. And, we've showcased this before to City of Atlanta. Boarded up. And what they've done is basically come and allowed people to take all the assets. And that's a flip. But see, nobody over here, because of the income disparity, can board it up. See if you can see that. That's about to be a flip. Can afford to buy. So what we did is put the gentrification on steroids. By not allowing, and this is Tyler Perry right here. Here's his wall. Okay, his studios are right here, and I have no doubt that these people purchased these houses because his studios are right here. And so, in essence, and let me turn around. But this wall was supposed to come down. It has never come down. So these people have no access to the jobs that he was supposed to create. Yeah. And really what we had, like, all that came here were family dollars, which everybody knows that's a gentrification issue. Look at everything. It's dead here. There's nothing else here. And
so isn't there something with the deal that him purchasing this property? Isn't there something that states that he has to provide some sort of resources to the community, jobs, opportunities, something to the community?
Yes, but really what happened, and again, this is the public engagement system in Atlanta. So I'll give you an example. At its core, this is getting into Venetian Hills, and what you're going to see over here is basically everybody's, stuff out on the street because they're getting the boot. These people their leases are not getting renewed. They're all getting evicted. And all the houses are getting flipped. That's a flip. And you're about to see their furniture on the street because that's what happens every time. So yeah, Tyler Perry, he was sold that property at a significant discount, which some people were up in arms about. But see, that's an eviction right there. They're leaving. And I didn't want to film those people. That's one right there. They're leaving. And these are the people that he was supposed to help. This is why he got the discount on the land. I'm turning around so you can see. And let me tell you, when I talk about this stuff, these gentrifiers lose their minds. So I'm positive I'm going to get in trouble for driving with this phone. But whatever. Hold on one second.
Good trouble. Look, so I just got someone Shayna McGaney just chimed in. She says Fulton County does 800 evictions per week.
Yeah,
800 evictions per week.
Well, Arthur Ferdinand. Hold on, I'm sorry, y'all. I've got to turn around just if I need my hand. Okay, Arthur Ferdinand, our tax commissioner. He makes a profit over every eviction. It's on his contract. He has compensation on the full time. To cash investors. I don't know why that is. Let me turn this around. That looks like the biggest scam to me ever, and I've videoed it, and shared it and so on. But so yes, Tyler Perry was supposed to help this community, and as you can see, other people are helping themselves to this community. And that wall was supposed to come down. And the way that it happened, the way this occurred, is that the neighborhood associations, in fact, there's a stop work permit on one of those houses because these people don't even pull permits. The city of Atlanta says, that's a flip. We're need revenue, but they don't even have the capacity of code enforcement to track these permits. None of these people pull permits. And where they're coming from, these people are all outsiders. They don't live here. And the way that this happened is because our neighborhood associations charge monetary dues. For example, my neighborhood association, Capital Flip, charges monetary dues and cuts out the voice of the collective. It's a few affluent people who make these decisions, and they lobby, and the council people think that they are representative of the community, and they are not. They are representative of a small demographic that is all gainfully employed, that all are homeowners. That's a flip right there. And they all have jobs. So they don't understand the needs of people who are not homeowners, who don't have jobs, who are not gainfully employed. It's an entire different demographic. And they put themselves in strategic positions on all these committees. That's exactly what happened with Tyler Perry. And they leverage, their own companies. They become consultants. They become, that's a flip right there. There's another flip. And they basically personally benefit. And we have, brought this to ethics in Atlanta. That looks semi like it's gonna be a flip, because whenever you see materials out there, and this is the scenario, and this is why people are doing the thing. And I'm not justifying crime. I'm just saying this is why people are doing the things that they're doing, because how would you feel? How would you feel watching other people thrive, doing things that you're not in position to do, and you're not being heard? I mean, the gates were up and the fireworks were going off at Tyler Perry, and it's like, the gates are up. Who's in there?
Robby, get stationary so that we can bring you on the screen and bring you in live. We're gonna bring Egberto in for just a few minutes, and then we're gonna come back to you and let you finish out this conversation. Okay?
Welcome aboard.
Hey, Egberto, take it over.
How are you guys doing today? Somebody has been trying to reach you like hell. You must be in demand, so I don't know. But anyway, hello, David. Hello, Tamara. Hello, Mademoiselle Robby. But Tamara, I came on at just the right time with just the right report from an independent journalist. This is what you're not going to see when they're celebrating Tyler Perry on MSNBC. This is what you're going to see when they're not celebrating all our Black heroes. That guy who gave $40 million to the Black University, who everybody thought was doing a great thing. What our Black billionaires learned as well is capitalism has no color. That what we are seeing is nothing more. What Robby just showed us is nothing more than another Black person joining the ranks of being a true capitalist. And when you're a capitalist, you understand one thing: Black and white means very little. Black, white, brown, Asian means nothing. The capitalists in China, the capitalists in America, the capitalists in Brazil, the capitalists in Nigeria, they all share different hues, but the one thing they share in common is that they are slave owners. And you know who the slaves are? Everybody else. And what we have to understand as a people, when I say as a people, I'm not only talking about Black people, I'm talking about white people and everybody else. They keep us fighting on these other issues of pigmentation. They keep us fighting on these other issues of gender and all of that as they rip us clean. What Robby just showed you is what you should have actually seen when they had Tyler Perry on TV. They should have said, Tyler, how comes you are building walls like Donald Trump? They should have said, Tyler, how comes you bought up all the property of the Black folk who had no money left on the cheap as you became a billionaire? How comes? When I talk to you about, and I'm going to get a little upset here, but when we talk about ADOS, I am with you. But let me tell you where I'm not with you. The people who most have affected Black people in this country, second to the white master, has been the Black overseer. And the black overseer are folks like the congressional black caucus, the Tyler Perrys of the world, the Oprah Winfreys of the world, because the Beyoncés of the world, because after they have attained their wealth, they realize that they became colorless, just like Bill Gates is colorless, and they have mortgaged their silence for all that is happening to everybody else. So what Robby Caban did on this thing is what every journalist should have been doing long time ago. Tyler Perry is no different than Disney. Tyler Perry is no different than what all these other people have done. But what it shows is that capitalism knows no color. It'll screw anybody on capital. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Egberto. We're just going to let you have that, and we're going to just bring Robby back in for the last few minutes. Egberto, thank you. You can always find Egberto Willies Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. This man is everywhere. Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. We are on fire this morning. Let's bring Robby back in. She's on location out in Atlanta. Let's see, Robby.
Hey, he couldn't stay on?
Well, we're trying to keep it, I don't want us to go too deep.
I like
yeah, but where are you now?
Well, I wind it up just because I know we're time sensitive, but I'm here in Venetian Hills, and this is another community, and these are all considered Beltline communities. I have to say, I don't necessarily, I respect Egberto dearly. I have a great affection for him. I don't know that Tyler Perry knows this exactly. And he didn't build the wall was there, but he was supposed to take it down. That was part of the commitment, or the agreement. And right behind me, actually, I stopped because this house is $400,000. And the median income over here is $16,000 to maybe $30,000, and I'm being generous. So clearly,
wait. So you're gonna have to just say that again.
Yeah.
Just say it again.
So the house behind me is listed at over $400,000. That was unheard of. But you have to understand what the influence that these neighborhood associations did. That they basically wanted people to come in because they see this as a good thing, as gentrification is a good thing. But nobody in those neighborhood associations are in the demographic of who would not benefit from that. So they are executing a very minor agenda, and City of Atlanta is allowing it. City of Atlanta is allowing it, and that is a massive cost to all of us together. Because what they don't understand, because they don't understand poverty, is that when you come off of expressways and 20 people deep are living under the bridge, that impacts too. When you have such an unstable housing market and you don't have stability on lending, it impacts commercial goods and services. It impacts how people can borrow. So you're creating an instability, but it's an instability that doesn't affect them because they're able to buy low, leave when they're upset with it. And that's what they're all doing now. They're all cashing out, and I as I stand here on this corner, I can tell you, and it's an emotional thing because the people who have lived here for a long time, they're all like waving. You know how Southern people are, and I'm a Yankee, so but they're all waving. They're the really, really nice people here. And to do this to people is it's really nasty. It's a really nasty scenario that's happening, and we're allowing it. City of Atlanta is complicit. Our leadership is complicit. And I don't know what else to say about it.
The people can't even. I'm stuck on the numbers. 400,000 for the house behind you.
Yeah.
The median income 16 some odd thousand. That's not enough
maximum 30,000.
Can't even survive. 30,000 is still no money.
Well, the credit.
Can't even.
You don't even have the credit to get into, because of the divestment here. And we're not just complaining. We've brought solutions that have been obstructed, and we have a massive. You saw that totalitarian knows. I don't know. I mean, could he be that much of an a-hole? Like really? Because he became who he became. It's such an irony here. He became who he is today, and everything he's amassed off of a caricature Medea. Well, let me tell you, I mean, there's tons of Medias over here. Could you really not have loyalty like that? Could that even be possible? Could you have amassed who you are and not respect who made you, who took you there? And when I look at these communities, I feel like they're the girlfriend who stood there the whole time, and then, you know, the I don't know, there's all kinds of notifications. Stood there the whole time, and then, you know, the person goes and marries somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And, you know, it's
Problems,
weird. Go ahead.
I said the problems are, I mean, we see it. What do? Because I think we're you know, we have to always we gotta talk solutions. Like, we know this is happening. What do we do? How do we move?
We created the solutions. You know, I chaired prior, you know, that's why these folks are kind of so upset. We keep bringing these issues to light, but we created the solutions in a economic development committee out of NPUX in District 12, and it was obstructed. It was obstructed not only by our gentrifiers, but there was a complicit with our district councilwoman. Ethics complaints were filed. We've approached the city of Atlanta, the mayor. A meeting is upcoming, and that plan has solutions. It has concrete, holistic, it's comprehensive, so I can't just jot them off in 10 points right now, but it does. And I hope, you know, I mean, Samira, you've been invited to the meeting, you know, as a state position, and I honestly, I don't even know what else to say. There's example after example, and if anybody thinks that this doesn't cost us money as a city, it does, because we pay 5 times in homelessness, you know, crisis. We pay 5 times to. We pay because we're allowing a small segment of affluent people to control our city agenda, and their agenda is executed at the city level, meaning that City of Atlanta is executing a gentrification agenda, which costs us more, 10 times more in the long run. And the reason it's happening is because in my opinion, our officials are also affluent. In my opinion, and I believe that there is a disconnect, and this is just what I've observed in 10 years. We have white affluence, white America, we have black affluent in Atlanta, and we have low-income blacks. And this is probably a discussion for ADOS because, you know, I'm Latin, as you know, and I can pass. So I see different things. I'm allowed in different conversations sometimes. And what I hear is that, well, you know, is Andrew Young's kids going to get, you know, reparations? Do they need them? So maybe this should be staggered, because the people who really need it, you know, I mean, and I'm not saying that everybody shouldn't get compensation. I completely believe in reparations. I just hear the argument. And if they're still telling me, they're semi-reasonable, because most people who are not reasonable will not talk to me anymore.
They won't talk to you anymore. That's
no,
okay,
exactly.
Robby.
So
You got a whole audience right here. They don't have to talk to you. You have a whole audience right here.
You know, it is. So I don't know, David, you're pretty quiet. What do you?
I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that there are real traps here. You know, poor people can't afford to hire lawyers to fight, you know, in their defense, and you know, the only things that are left really are mass mobilization and getting somebody like Robby Caban to maybe run for municipal council.
You said it, and I've said it, David. Let's say it out loud. Robby, we want you to run. Run, Robby, run. Hashtag run, Robby, run.
So I agree with you, David, that you know, and a lot of activists, like traditional activists, tell me organize. Look, man, they're under a bridge. The meetings are not even public. You know, restructure our community engagement system. And the truth is there's enough of us. You know, we don't have to drag the people in dire straits. There's enough of us to do the right thing. You know, to stand up and say that's not right to charge monetary dues for civic engagement. That's equivalent to a poll tax, and City of Atlanta will not tolerate or recognize any community association who does that. You know, and that we will restructure our NPUs, and that the NPU meetings will be in public arena and go live and on, you know, public spaces that are by that are by MARTA, so people can get there. At times that people who are working can get there. And this is all part of this comprehensive plan and this meeting with, you know,
Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. You know, I don't know. And this is not to knock Tyler Perry. I am not, you know, or anybody who's accruing wealth. That's not the point. Because if we were to take care of the least of these, right, in some basic quality of life, just basic quality of life, tiny homes, vehicles, MARTA cards, you know, access to medical, if we did basic quality of life, the disconnect would not be so horrible. But we don't. We allow people to live under bridges knowing, you know, that they cannot get back on their feet living under a bridge. And then when you showcase it, what happens? The people disappear. It's not solved. The people disappear.
And where do they go, Robby? Do they send them?
I
Do they
think
like send them?
I don't know where they go. But what I do know is these nonprofits, we can probably get into a different discussion, but well, you know, it came up. Let's just bring it up. The affluent people who come here, I'll give an example. Habitat for Humanity. It seems like a great organization. They build out. There's a subdivision, a Habitat subdivision down the street. They build out a house for a cost of $30,000. They sell it to poor people for over $100,000. How the F is that enough?
Wait. You sell it to poor people who can't even afford.
No, they put people through credit counseling and so on, and you have to apply. But when you look at the executive salaries of these nonprofits and you understand really what they're doing, Annie Casey's a great example, the Pittsburgh Yards, you know, they've owned that property, 30 acres, you know, for over 10 years. They were supposed to help Pittsburgh. Maybe next time we can do a live from there, because that's a perfect example. Pittsburgh is completely gentrified now, and Annie Casey had a hand in that. Annie Casey flipped properties instead of developing the 30-acre parcel, and they're a nonprofit, and City of Atlanta funded it. Because correct. And City of Atlanta funded it the way City of Atlanta funded Tyler Perry Studios. It facilitated this, and we have so many of these developments. And the reason is because who is influencing City of Atlanta elected officials are in a small demographic who want to see this happen because they don't see it as a bad thing. And respectfully, I don't know what they think. I don't know if, you know, I've heard all kinds of things. I've heard, you know, that whatever, the people need to pull up their pants or go get a job. I think it's a white fragility scenario. You know, this is funny. About 30 people have driven by here, and the predominant have been black, and they've all waved or been nice or said something. One white couple has just gone by there. They're the only ones who didn't wave. I kid you not. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying it's as someone who's not black or white watching this, it's been a trip. Put it that way. It's been a real trip.
Robby, you got to come back. You got to keep giving us an update on what's happening in Atlanta, because we don't know. You know, these kind of things are swept under the carpet. These kind of things are, you know, they don't want us to have these kind of real conversations about what's happening to people. So definitely come back and continue to do these kind of lives where people really see it. We're not just saying it, you're actually showing it, and people are seeing this for real. So thank you, Robby.
Yeah, well, let me, you know, it's funny because some people are, I'm going to turn this around. Some people are walking by. We don't even have sidewalks here. You see that? And what they do is they come here and they want the amenities. I mean, do you see this person in this wheel pushing like a wheelchair kind of with stuff? What they do is they put people of color in front to advance their agenda when they want bike lanes, when they want infrastructure. And it's such a, and I want to bring this up because I believe it's a discussion that we can't get into, that we have such a challenge getting into because of this white fragility, and we don't teach history. So they feel very justified. You know, they're very angry when these things come up because they cannot process, because we don't teach history.
Maybe it's time for a sit-in at Tyler Perry's offices.
Well,
David.
God, I mean, you know, he's vulnerable to bad publicity, and maybe that's something that might shift the at least shift the conversation, because the things that you're saying, Robby, really, you know, they're very, very telling, and they expose some real, you know, inequities in the system that maybe that's one of the ways to put some pressure.
Look, I'm not trying to, like, you know, I agree with you, David, and I'm not trying to exploit anyone, but you know, if there's an elder here pushing a wheelchair with no sidewalks here.
Yeah. Bike lanes with no sidewalks. So those are conversations that we got to continue to have. We're at the top of the hour. Robbie, thank you so very much. We look forward to having you back with more of an ATL update on what's going on in Atlanta, because these are the conversations, like I said, they don't want us to have and they don't want us to know. So thank you, Robbie.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you,
y'all.
Robbie.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
powerful. Very powerful.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, David,
Wow.
today was a full broadcast, a full show. We're at the top of the hour. You want to give us like 1 minute, 30 seconds?
Well, I think that Robbie's just really very moving, and you know, her emotions are justified. You know, they're not justified. I mean, everybody's emotions are what they are, but it really moved me to think about, you know, the uh, the injustices in the world, you know, brought home to, you know, very close to home here, and something that we really, I hope our our listeners, our watchers are thinking about and can, you know, contribute to you know changing and making something right here.
So I want to thank you guys for watching. This is a full broadcast today. I am Tamara Johnson-Shealy. You can find Mr. David Slavin at Acknowledge the Divide right here on Facebook. You can find Mr. Egberto Willies at politicsdoneright.com. Mr. Ken Williams joined us today, kwillservices.com. Again, I am Tamara Johnson-Shealy, tamaraforgeorgia.com. See you next Friday.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.